So it should be recording. So thank you all for being here for the Congressional Internship Information Session with the Center for Career Development and Academic Exploration. To get us kicked off, we'll just do a couple of little intros. My name is Mary Beth Woodward, and I work at the Center for Career Development with Internship and Academic Exploration, excuse me, that's our full name, with internship development, and I help oversee the Congressional Intern Program. And then we have a couple of other people here that are going to be working with the Congressional Intern Program this coming spring to help assist our summer 2022 intern class. So Stephanie and Simone, if you want to quickly introduce yourselves, that would be great.
Hi all, I'm Stephanie Kitt. I'm the director at the Center for Career Development and Academic Exploration and look forward to working with you this spring.
Awesome. My name is Simone Stewart. I'm a career coach, and I will also be assisting with the Congressional Internship Program. So I look forward to working with you all as well.
And then we have a couple of former Congressional Internship Program recipients here on the call. So Savannah and McLean, if you want to just briefly introduce yourselves, tell us what you're majoring in, what you're studying, and who you interned with and when. So Savannah, if you want to kick it off, and then we'll go to McLean.
Sure, I'm Savannah. I'm a senior here. I graduate in December, and I study public administration in Haslam College of Business. And I interned for Senator Hagerty this summer for 7 weeks in June and July.
Yeah, my name is McLean Driscoll. I'm a senior. I'm majoring in economics in the Haslam College of Business, and I interned for 7 weeks with Congressman Rose.
Great, thank you both. And so they interned this past summer. And so they're going to share a little bit later about their experiences. So you'll get to hear a little bit more about. All right, so Stephanie's going to go over the program basics now.
I did drop the link to the Congressional Internship Program on the Career Center's website into the chat for our participants if you want to access that directly. But to give you the big picture, the internship program is funded by UT's Division of Student Success, and it's meant to provide an opportunity for UT students to intern in Washington, D.C. with our congressmen and senators so that they can gain that rich experience that a congressional internship provides. And knowing that most of the internships are unpaid, there is a financial stipend attached to this program. So students who are accepted into the UT program are eligible for a $5,000 stipend in the summer and a $7,500 stipend during the spring or fall semester, since that is a longer time frame. So this money can help support housing and travel and other living expenses. For students who are accepted into the program, they must then on their own apply and hopefully obtain an internship with one of our senators or congressmen. So we will help shepherd students through that process in terms of making sure your materials look good and helping make connections so we know who the intern coordinators are, and we will send emails on your behalf to let the coordinators know that you have our support and that you've been selected through a competitive process. But ultimately, you will interview with those offices and they make the job offers. In most cases, I mean, very rarely have we ever had an intern not get an offer. I think a couple of times we had students who felt that they only wanted to work in a few number of places. And when that wasn't working out, they withdrew from the program. Mary Beth, you can go on.
Thanks. Took me a little while.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what congressional interns in Washington, D.C. actually do. There's a lot. There is variety in what they do, and it can vary by office. So different representatives and senators can use their interns in a little bit of different ways. However, these are some common intern tasks. They generally provide office support for the office. A lot of times interns are the first face that constituency when they walk into the office, or the first voice that they hear when a constituent calls on the phone and inquires about something. Interns give tours of the Capitol. So Tennessee residents reach out to their delegation when they are visiting DC and to get tours of the Capitol. And so interns get to actually give those tours. Interns do a lot of constituent communications that may be via email and letter writing, it may be over the phone, but a lot of constituent communications. Some interns, when they express interest in maybe like communications related tasks, press, that kind of thing, you may help the communications team in the office do some of that kind of work. Interns may attend meetings and briefings and take notes and provide summaries to the staff. Generally, interns are really need to be willing to do whatever they're asked, and the ebb and flow of your duties can kind of vary depending on the time of year, depending on if Congress is in session, depending on if the representative or senator is in the office. So it could depend a little bit. But I'd like to kind of ask Savannah and McLean, what was your day-to-day like? What were some of the main things that you did in your office?
I can go first. It was a little different for us just because COVID things were still happening. So I don't think either one of us would have given any tours of the Capitol. Mine was a little unique too, because I worked for Senator Haggerty and Congressman Burchett in Knoxville before going. So they didn't really have me working the phones or doing any of like this, I guess, like standard intern work. I was doing more of legislative research and briefs. And we had a unique thing where one of our staff assistants was kind of moving into an LA role, or a legislative assistant role, or I might have been LC, doesn't matter. Point is, they kind of had some gaps that like the interns had to fill. And so some people took on different roles and we would rotate what we did. I also went to committee hearings, took notes. I guess sometimes we would go and watch the votes. I did a couple times, and you're right, it's ebb and flow for sure. There were some weeks where we were in session and doing everything from 9 to 5, and there were some weeks where we were out of session doing whatever they had us to do. So that's pretty much mine. I don't know if McLean has something from the House side.
Thanks.
Yeah, so from the House side, at least with my congressman, in our office, the interns did have the responsibilities that you had basically every day, which were handling the phone calls, and then also, so that was like tracking and passing along just constituent correspondence. So we were the first, ones to answer the phone calls, like you said earlier. We did a lot of that. So that was what we did every day. But there were many other tasks that they did allow us to do, and that through time, there were different needs that they had. And so one topic that our legislative director was working on was this tax and different aspects of electric vehicles. And that's something that I have a little bit of research experience in. And so they asked me, I let them know that, and say, they let me research that, and then I would just create memos and pass that along. So there were times where I'd be using research and things like that to support the legislative staff. There were a few times I also helped with the press secretary by creating different flyers and things like that. Like they're just really like at least with my office, and it does vary a little bit. Some offices can have a very strict, here's all of your responsibilities, and like that's what they are. And then some offices are very, you get what you put in basically, and you can let them know, and they can be very open and receptive to what you'd like to do. And so my office was very open, and they wanted us to just like learn and do whatever we wanted to do. So they gave us opportunity to, help research and create memos, to sit in on meetings, take notes, and then pass that along up to the legislative directors. And yeah, a lot of it just dealing with correspondent work and office maintenance and making sure everything was okay there, and greeting a little bit of staff. No tours, like Savannah said, because of COVID. That started the week after I left. So I missed out, and that was the joke, that they started that because I left. But so yeah, that will be, though, if you are giving tours in the future, or an intern, you'll likely be giving tours of the Capitol.
Great, thank you both. And those were both good points. So what I would say is you have the day-to-day work, but the more you kind of prove yourself, the more you make your interests known, the more they know that they can rely on you. Sometimes the different tasks they can give you. So like Savannah and McLean mentioned, doing a little bit more of that research process, attending more of those hearings, briefings, meetings, etc., doing a little bit more of that. Or if you're super interested in like the press side, doing more of that. So
I have something to add with that too, if I have time. I was just going to add that too, is we had a couple people that were interested in press, like that team. So like they worked with them. And then I was interested in like the healthcare policy side. So I went to help meetings, even though my senator isn't on the help committee. So like they're very flexible and like letting you do whatever you want. And like, especially for me, because we had a lot of interns. I don't know about McLean, but there was at one point where there was like 8 of us. It's like there was like a lot of flexibility, which was nice. And I let them know I was writing a thesis, and they let me set up meetings with senators and congresswomen, which is really cool. So they definitely just want you to do like whatever is best and learn. So
great experiences. So the next thing I want to talk a little bit about is the benefit of interning. And I think Savannah and McLean kind of alluded to this, but I might ask them about it in just a second. So there's a lot of reasons why you might want to intern in DC. It's a great resume builder. It provides a lot of those really important transferable skills that are really good in any career path, no matter what you choose to do. So if government and politics is your chosen career path, great. This is super important for you to do. If you're not 100% sure if that's the way you want to go, it's still a great experience to build those transferable skills. It's also a great place to network. Washington, D.C. is like network central, sort of. So it's a good place to build contacts that might help with future jobs, careers, grad school, that kind of thing. It's really a chance to see the political process firsthand. A lot of students say, I've studied as much as I can from books and professors and things like that, but seeing it firsthand really helped me understand how things actually work. And you can also learn how individual citizens, how groups of people, movements, etc., have an impact on legislation. So there's lots of reasons. What do you think, Savannah and McLean? What are some of the things that you think benefits of interning that you've kind of realized?
Definitely the obvious one, like resume, letters of recommendation for law school, which is what I was going through right now. True, seeing it firsthand. I mean, it's a very fast-paced environment. So if you don't know it before, you're going to get thrown into it and learn really fast, which was nice. Definitely networking. We had mixers all the time, just with interns. There's a group me with like 1,000 people. There was like a joint one too, and they get annoying, but like you could meet a lot of people. In my office, we also met with the staff. Like we got to choose people we wanted to meet with and go to get coffee at Cups, which is like the famous coffee shop in the Senate side. But you get to do that. You can also meet with other offices. So like we had a lot of people reach out to offices they might want to work with another time, or they even stayed for another session. So, I mean, it's really up to you how much you want to network. There were some people like handing out like business cards or QR codes everywhere you went, but there were also some people who were like, I'm doing this just because like I need something to do, and it's not like politics might not be in their future. So it just kind of depends on, I guess, what they're looking for.
Yeah, a lot of like basically exactly what Savannah said. But these bullet points right here that she's sharing are exactly like just the shortest summary of everything that you experience, the reasons. You know, having it on your resume is just basically a signaling of I'm professional, and typically interns in the legislative branch tend to have just a level of quality. It's basically saying like I'm sort of exceptional almost, because a lot of interns, you know, have very high grades, are involved in extracurriculars, just are very well rounded. That's tend to be the people who get chosen to be interns. So that's sort of what potential employers see when they see that on your resume. And then building contacts. I still talk weekly with people in my office, and they've been so helpful. Like we've actually become like true friends. Love some of the people in my office, and they've helped me out like with applications, like Savannah said, letters of recommendation, or even just putting in words to people they know. So in the Hill, or the legislative staff and everyone in the office, it's a fast-paced environment, and sometimes there are people leaving, that there's new people joining kind of often, because it's just a fast-paced environment. And so you really, just by spending those 2 months that I had in that office, and some people have already like gone to do new things, or they like have a future that they're seeking out, that your connection is just, by having that one internship, spreads so far because of what all the people will be going on to do. And yeah, I learned a lot about the political process, and it's very fast paced and it's very interesting. I mean, you can learn a lot of it. It's really fun. It's really exciting. And then, yeah, how to impact legislation. You see how the process starts, like at the lowest level, you know, phone calls and emails from constituents, and, you know, how that can transform into actual involvement, your member of Congress's involvement with legislation. So it's just really exciting, and it was an amazing time.
Great. And I'm glad, I'm very, I guess, heartened to hear all of this, and to see that despite COVID, you both still had really full experiences, which is a good sign, because, you know, this year, hopefully it'll be even more, you know, even more people up there. So that's great. All right. So a little bit about the application process for the Congressional Internship Program. You will apply through Handshake. I am not going to pull it up right now, but Handshake is the job and internship platform that we use at UT, if you're not familiar with it. If you go to career.utk.edu and look on the right side of the page, there's a little blue box that says Handshake. And so if you have not activated your Handshake profile, that is where you would do so. But you would apply through Handshake, and you will be asked for a resume and answers to some short essay type questions. And then you will upload those through Handshake to apply. You'll also be asked for a letter of recommendation from a faculty member, a work supervisor, something like that. And those can be emailed specifically to Stephanie Kitt at her email address. So apply through Handshake by January 31st at the latest. And the process then moves to the next step. There will be a review of applications. The committee will review the applications, and then decide which students they're going to invite to interview for the Congressional Intern Program. Those interviews will take place over Zoom between February 7th and February 9th, 2022. And the interview committee, the Congressional Internship Selection Committee, consists of Center for Career Development and Academic Exploration staff members, Baker Center for Public Policy staff members, people from the Department of Political Science, people maybe from the Jones Center for Leadership and Service, and usually a former congressional internship intern, so someone that has interned before. After that interview process, the committee will get together to determine the program recipients. And so you would receive acceptance by February 14th. So that is our timeline. So I would definitely suggest, if you are thinking about applying, that you use the holiday break to get your materials together, that you go ahead and ask your recommenders for your recommender for letters of recommendation, because that January 31st deadline will come up quicker than you think, especially with classes starting a bit later this year. So that's the application process. Stephanie's going to talk about what happens if you're accepted.
Okay, so if you are accepted, then the next steps move rather quickly. And so that's another reason why you may want to spend some time over our longer winter break this year, like perfecting your resume and starting to get familiar with the Congressional Internship website, preparing for the interview. But once you are accepted, you'll start working with Simone and myself on really making sure that your resume is perfected as much as possible, that you write a strong cover letter, and that you begin applying to the offices in DC. So we will help you with contacts. We have links on the Congressional Internship website to all of the offices and their internship program. Every office is a little different. Some have an actual application. Some just tell you where to email your materials to. So you need to be just paying close attention to detail in terms of the office processes and any deadlines they may have. We do ask that students apply to a minimum of 4 offices to help better your chances of securing an internship experience. Probably our biggest difficulty is when we have students who feel like they want to intern with our Democratic offices. And since we only have 2 with Representative Cohen and Representative Cooper, that really can limit you. And we ask that you find at least another 2 offices that you're comfortable applying to. And we will talk you through that. We feel like you can really get great experience even if you're crossing party lines. And we've had many interns do that over the years. You also want to start preparing for the phone interviews that you'll do with the individual offices, and you can get support in the Career Center for that. So once you conduct your interviews, that's then where you're really waiting for offers and seeing where you might get offered an opportunity to intern. Some important decisions to think about. Of course, right now we're talking more specifically about the summer internship experience, but if you are thinking about alternative plans this summer, maybe you're also planning to study abroad, then you might consider doing a fall experience or even delaying until spring. Sometimes we have students intern in the semester directly before they graduate, and that can turn into a full-time job offer in the office where they're interning or another delegate's office. So just figuring out the timing that's going to be best for you. If you choose not to participate in the congressional internship, or if you are not accepted into the program, There are other options to gain similar experience that can work really well for you. I believe Savannah mentioned working locally for Haggerty. And so there's many opportunities to intern in Knoxville or Nashville or near your hometown. There's also a Tennessee state legislative internship that gets students working in Nashville, and Dr. David Foles in the Department of Political Science runs that program. So we also just want you to know about other options to gain great experience. You're going to need to think about housing in DC and what might work best for you. That is something you need to secure on your own, and we will typically provide you with links to some sites you might look at and connections with some previous interns to learn from their experience. But there is housing available at some of the local universities. There is a Washington internship housing site called Wish. There's people who have done Airbnb, people who live with relatives. So it needs to be personalized to the situation that will work best for you. And then finally, considering whether or not you want to take classes while interning. I don't think it's particularly common to do that in the summer, although in the spring and fall semester, we occasionally have students who will do an independent study or want to get internship credit within the political science department. And there are pros and cons to that, including the cost associated with tuition, how much time you may have while you're in DC, and whether or not you want to spend time in courses. And so we could talk you through what that might look like. Savannah or McLean, do you want to add anything on this page before we move on?
How did you all find your housing, or where did y'all end up living, if you don't mind sharing?
So at least with my experience, everything was closed. Like all universities were closed. The only intern housing was like the hotel, which is like right beside Capitol Hill. And there was a couple other ones, but like not that popular. I stayed at an Airbnb in Capitol Hill, like the district, and it probably took me like 7 minutes to walk there, which I highly suggest just because you don't have to worry. But then we had people in our office living in Arlington and taking the metro. So like, it's really up to you, like convenience, money wise. I mean, some people live with like roommates. So it just kind of depends on what's best for you.
Yeah, I found housing there. I have a good friend who lives there, and they just had another friend who I lived with. So I got really lucky in that regard. But my office they shared a ton of resources with me. So, if you let your office know, especially if it's like kind of close to the beginning of the start of the internship, they'll let you can let them know, or they will be very ready to help you out. But yeah, Airbnb, there's a few websites. Just Google like internship housing DC, and a lot of different websites will pop up. I believe UT might have one as well, I think, or like one website that has many different resources on it. So definitely use everything and stick with like what price you can afford. Because there's, the closer you are to the Capitol, the more expensive it'll be. And especially if it's like a private like hotel room, but if it's like a shared, there's like a dorm type thing that can happen. A few of those were closed, but they should be open back up now. So you'll have more options luckily now than we had.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And yes, hopefully there will be those options again on various campuses and in Wish this summer. The next slide is just to highlight a few services about the Center for Career Development. So I would be remiss if I didn't just share some of what our center can do for you, whether or not you choose to apply for the Congressional Internship. We do have career coaches like Simone who are very knowledgeable and specialize in industries or by major. So every major has a particular career coach that would work with them. And you can schedule appointments with your career coach through Handshake. And the coaches can provide assistance in finding internships and jobs, but as well as graduate school preparation. They help students with documents that will be important to you, like your resume and cover letter, help you hone your interview skills, really work on your LinkedIn profile, your presence on LinkedIn, your Handshake profile. And then we just have so many events throughout the year that can be very rich opportunities for you to learn from industry professionals. So Simone has led career conversations around law and government. We sometimes take students to local employers so that you can see sites firsthand. Of course, we'll have our big spring job fair in February this year. And just being on Handshake and looking at all of the job opportunities, internship opportunities there is a really important tool that you have available to you.
All right, so do we have any questions for myself or Stephanie or our former interns, Savannah and McLean? You're more than welcome to unmute yourself or type it in the chat if you have any questions for us. No pressure. Savannah or McLean, just to close it out and just so we can just make sure people don't have any questions. Is there any other advice that you would want to provide potential interns, things they could do to prepare, you know, the most surprising thing, something like that?
You have a question as well, but I can go first depending on whichever. Okay, advice going in, try to connect with people before. I know that sounds kind of bad, but sometimes it's nice if you've worked in an office before. I mean, like, especially when you work for an office, at least for me afterwards, you kind of like your name starts to like become part of that. So then you might get asked to do other things. So I guess advice with that is make sure like you try to find a way to connect yourself. In the office, the staff definitely knows who's working like hard and who's not. So showing up on time, like I know that sounds like very like simple, like professional and like wearing the right things, but when it comes down to it, like they're the people that might write your letters of recommendation or help you find jobs. And there were some interns that obviously did more than others. Like they recognize like who wants to be there and work hard. What else? Applying wise, I guess try to really get a good cover letter, like show that you've like been a leader on campus. Like, yes, you have good grades, but like what have you done to interact with like people? And it doesn't even have to be political as long as it's just like engaging with the community in some way, because they want you to be able to like understand issues that affect Tennesseans. Like, I mean, for mine was broad and like for McLean's, it might have been like his district, but either way, like you want to be in touch with the local news or whatever is going on. So try to have a little bit of research done before your phone calls. For me, I think I even talked about what committees like were going to be, or the senator had when he came through. So try to make sure you're knowledgeable before you go in, for sure.
Thank you. Good advice. McLean, did you have anything?
Yeah, so a lot of what Savannah said, especially the last point, for the interview, you should know a few things about the person you're interviewing with. You should know what committees they're on, their background and sort of their story. So that's very important. Because I had 4 interviews in 4 different offices, and I think that was a question in every single interview. So definitely know that. And also every office is unique. And like every office is very unique. So my best advice is I would start looking right now at the Congress people in Tennessee, because they will have different deadlines. They will have different starting times, end dates. Some will tell you how much that you could potentially make in their office. Some will not tell you how much you will make in their office. There's a lot of different information that the offices will give you, and they all move at their own pace. So my advice is just be to start looking now, get a gauge of when you really need to, like what things you need to know and what things you'll need to learn throughout the application process for each place. And I ended up visiting many offices. I worked with different offices while I was there, where I got to visit and help them out with different things they needed help with. And so each office has its own personality too. And you can't learn that before you get there. So it's just about gauging what your office is like and just fitting in where they need you to. So, and a lot of them were great though. All the ones I visited in Tennessee were really great offices. So I think that's all my advice on that, or the most important.
Thank you.
Forgot something too. You keep reminding me of things to say every time you talk. This is really important. I think we just forgot because it sounds obvious too. At least for us, social media is a big thing. Like the less controversial things you have, the better. I mean, they're going to look through, at least for our office, I know they went through and pretty much made sure that they were being professional and appropriate in everything they posted, because one of the first things they tell you when you get there is you're representing XYZ, whoever it is, and that's it. You don't have your personal opinions right now when you're working. So some people learn that the hard way, especially on Capitol Hill. So that's a good piece of advice, I think, is just keeping everything clean and appropriate. And I guess the adage is you don't want your grandparents to see something. If you don't want them to see it, then don't post it. So.
Mm-hmm. And JC, your question in the chat, on average, how many people are selected for the internship program? So that is completely different for every office. There were some Senate offices though. So here's just a little breakdown. You have Senate, and then you have the Congress people on the other side. And then you have, so the Senate tends to have bigger offices. They tend to have more interns. That's just a little bit of a basis. So, but my office, it started out with 2 interns, me and one other person. And then at the end though, there were 4 of us in total. So there were 4 total through that summer, but I know in the Senate side, there was one in Wisconsin that we knew, they had 14 people in there, 14 interns. It's crazy on the Senate side, but yeah, it varies greatly.
Hey, don't pass out over there.
That is true. Exactly. For the offices, that is what the numbers that you tend to see, 2 to 4, a lot of times 4 on the House side, and 8 to 10 on the Senate side. For our congressional intern program, from the applicant pool, we typically select somewhere, give or take 1 or 2, around 10 interns for the summer. So we typically select around 10 to be funded for the congressional intern program for the summer. Yeah, and Stephanie, did you want to wrap it up for us?
Sure. I just want to, thank everyone for coming out this evening. And Savannah and McLean, I love your comments and advice. So there's nothing that beats hearing directly from students who have interned, and just hearing you summarize your experiences and the ways you prepared, I think was really helpful. So I appreciate you being here with us. And for those who participated, I hope that you'll consider applying. I think, by and large, students report just loving the program and having an amazing experience, and it's really launched a lot of people's careers. So please do consider it carefully. And if you need any assistance from the Career Center, you're welcome to reach out to any of us here on the call.